achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 184 pay-per-view, which will feature, as of right now, you never know, we've got a week, we could see another change happen, Ronda Rousey defending her women's bantamweight title against longtime number one contender, Kat Zingano. This fight will take place on February 28th, live from Los Angeles, California at the Staples Center. I'll be giving you my 5 main card predictions for this card on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary breakdowns will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, we are coming off of an exceptional, we'll call it that, fight, UFC Fight Night 61, in which 10 of the 11 fights ended with the underdog getting their hand raised. Ivan George won the opening fight of the night as a favorite, and the next 10 underdogs won. I believe the numbers were in the high millions. I think it was something like $6.2 million if you put a $10 bet down on all of the main, underdogs that cashed in at their optimal price. I unfortunately did not. Now in the bet packs, while the card was not super great as far as predicting goes, I went 4-7. The bet packs produced over, well, if you put $10 down on each unit, the bet packs produced close to $3,000 in winnings, which is pretty solid. 4 of my 5 value picks cashed in. I also had Sam Alvey as a counter bet, and there were several fights featuring, Cesar Ferreira, William Macario, to name a few. Who else was there? There's a couple other guys that I had said, I picked them, but don't bet on Antonio Bigfoot Silva. I said, don't bet on Bigfoot, bet on the under in that fight. So when my record doesn't reflect it, the betting night was pretty solid nonetheless. Overall, it was just a very difficult fight, because anybody who picks that many underdogs as a legitimate predictor is just throwing baloney at the wall and hoping it sticks. Either way, we move on. We've got a pretty good set of fights ahead of us here. Also have to pump DraftKings as well. It's a pretty fun competition. Last night was tough with so many fights not going in the direction I expected them to, but nonetheless, great opportunity to win some serious cash for a very minimal input. If you're not into betting the big bucks, a couple bucks can give you a chance to win a couple $1,000, a couple $100. You go fill out the contest. Join the contest you want to join. It really is a great opportunity, and I suggest if you're interested, you certainly take a look at it. Click on any banner on my website, it'll take you directly to it. I'm also looking to set up a contest through DraftKings. You'll be able to look at the DraftKings page, and I'm challenging anyone out there. I'm going to enter it. I think it's going to be a $10 entry fee. I'm going to limit it to 20 spots, and I'm going to say either winner takes all or top 2 cash. Either way, if it's winner takes all, we have a $180 prize pool. They take about $20, $15 for putting everything up, but I'm challenging anybody who's listening to join. I'm going to set it up ASAP, probably around Tuesday or Wednesday. Set it up. Deposit your $10, pick your 5 fighters, and see who can take it down. So I'm very much looking forward to that. That's enough rambling for me. We got 5 fantastic fights. Let's get to the first prediction. We kick things off in the UFC's lightweight division as Tony Alkakui Ferguson, 18-3-0, takes on longtime UFC vet Gleison Tibau with an incredible record of 40 wins and just 10 defeats. Now, Tibau's making his second straight short notice appearance, replacing Yancy Medeiros in this fight. He took this matchup with roughly 25 days to prepare, 6 weeks since his last matchup, and which was a short notice win over Norman Park, which he also took on 6 weeks' notice. For Tony Ferguson, he's riding a 4-fight winning streak coming in. There's only 1 loss in his last 11. He's done a pretty remarkable job. For Gleison Tibau, similar momentum, 3-fight winning streak, 1 loss in his last 6 fights. Both guys were beaten by Michael Johnson, who we just saw, as I predicted, picked up an upset win over Edson Barboza. For Tibau, he lost by knockout to Johnson, and Ferg lost by decision. Tony will be 1 inch taller and have a 5-inch reach advantage over his Brazilian counterpart. Now, the first thing we're going to look at here is Tibau's cardio. It's a massive question mark. 6 of his last 7 wins have come by decision, including 3 in a row, but his last 2 and 3 of his last 4 were by split decision. And the question is, with the quick turnaround, simply 6 weeks to prep and cut weight, is this going to be an issue? He's never done it before in his UFC career. He's almost had 2 or more months between each and every one of his fights to prepare, but he must feel confident that he can get there. But we could also see him looking for a big opportunity to take out Tony Ferguson and establish himself possibly in the top 15 with a significant win over another rising prospect. For Tony Ferguson, he's known for having excellent cardio. He beat Abel Trujillo based on his ability to weather the early storm and just beating down an exhausted opponent. For Tibau, he can win this fight on the feet. Let's look at it that way. He could win this fight on the feet, but the chances are fairly minuscule for him to pull that off. He needs to use his wrestling and top control to come out victorious. For Tony Ferguson, he's fairly talented on the ground, but he's not going to be able to take Gleison Tibau down, especially if he's fresh, especially early on. He needs to use his striking to win this matchup. Looking at the Brazilian first, he has improved his wrestling significantly. We say that every time, but it certainly is the case. He's a BJJ black belt. He's a constant submission threat with 13 wins by tap out. He's averaged 4.26 takedowns at a 54% completion rate, which is pretty darn remarkable, and even more so, 93% takedown defense. And even though he lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov, it was pretty darn impressive how he's able to thwart all of his takedown attempts when everyone else has been put down with relative ease by the Russian. With Tibau, he'll power through his takedowns, exceptionally heavy top control. He's incredibly hard to buck off. He's scored 11 takedowns in his last 3 victories and 20 takedowns in his last 6 wins, so you can see how important it is for him to utilize his wrestling. Now for Tony Ferguson, 88% takedown defense. That's pretty solid. He did give up 2 takedowns against Abel Trujillo and Danny Castillo, and he's made some positional mistakes, especially in the Castillo fight, that cost him time on the bottom. And that's not something he can do here because you're not going to get up with Tibau when he gets on top of you. Now, he is a BJJ brown belt and a former collegiate wrestler. He has a decent sprawl and will transition to sub attempts. He really likes that dart stroke with those long legs. But against Tibau, that could cost him positionally, and I don't think it's something he wants to do. The sprawl, get out, get back to the feet and attack. Now, Tibau has improved his striking significantly, but Ferguson has a big advantage on the feet. He throws incredibly hard strikes, gets very good extension, good low leg kicks, especially on the inside leg, and he does it nice and low, which makes it harder for a fighter to pick off and land a takedown. He has good power, 9 wins by knockout, and Tibau has been knocked out 3 times, including the aforementioned loss to MJ. I like the way Tony Ferguson changes angles, has good movement. He's very hard to hit, can stand in front of he can't stand in front of Tibau though, and that's one of the things that footwork will come in handy. If he does, he will get taken down though. Another thing I like, he keeps the pressure on. Tibau almost is just short of having a negative 0.5 striking exchange rate, while Ferguson is positive 0.65 and outlands Tibau an average of 1.6 strikes per minute. Those are big numbers over the course of a 15-minute fight. A late stoppage is possible the way Tony throws and the way Tibau might slow down. I think the first round will be close. Ferguson might actually lose it, but I think Tony will wear him down in the long run, and my prediction is Tony Ferguson to defeat Gleison Tibau by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's welterweight division as Brahma Jouban, 10-3-0, battles filthy Richard Walsh of Australia with a current record of 8 wins and 3 defeats. Now, both men are making their 3rd UFC appearance. The comfort level should be there. Walsh was an Ultimate Fighter Nations vet, and Jouban, he fought in the Resurrection Fighting Alliance organization, which has produced a number of rising UFC prospects. Walsh, 10 total fights. Jouban has 13, so relatively in the same place experience-wise. Both guys are coming off very questionable decision losses where they were both facing locally based fighters who were given the win, and it was very questionable. Physically, the same height, 1-inch reach advantage for the Aussie. First thing to consider here is the east to west travel for Walsh. He has had spent some time at Alpha Male and fought in the States, but for the most part he's staying at home for his training. And when you get that travel from Australia to Canada, in this place Los Angeles, which actually isn't as far away as some of the other places he could be going to in the States, it can be difficult. We'll see if that has an impact. We've talked about that with the Asian-based fighters having some trouble there. This is the first time he's actually fought in the U.S. He did fight in Quebec for the Tough Nations finale, but this is the first time he's fought in the United States, so that'll be interesting as well. For Jouban, he's a BJJ brown belt under Eddie Bravo, 7 wins by knockout, just a single submission, and he's 2-2 in decisions, along with a single knockout defeat. For Walsh, a BJJ purple belt, he has 4 wins by knockout, 1 submission, and he's 3-1 in fights that go the distance. He did lose by submission very early in his career against Robert Whittaker, and that's something of note there. The trend I'm looking at with Alan Jouban, first of all, he tends to get hurt very early in matchups, and then rallies back. That's happened in both of his fights. Against Seth Baczynski, he was dropped by a left hand and rallied back for the victory. And against Warley Alves, he was dropped, put on his back, not hit with some big ground and pound for the most part on the defensive early on, and I thought he'd come back. I had Warley Alves, and I thought Jouban had won that matchup. The American has a very good kicking game, hard body kicks. We saw him hurt Alves with one of them, showed some good combinations, throws 2, 3, and 4 volume combos, mixes in his kicks and elbow strikes well, and will go to the body exceptionally well. Now, he can be taken down, which is a big concern. He will spend some time on his back where he will attack, but that's a position you don't want to be. He lost a pre-UFC bout against Mike Biggie Rhodes because he was too willing to go to his back and try and fend off or work from that position and earn a submission. Now, in his last fight, he was getting backed against the cage, against Baczynski a little bit as well. He was getting backed against the cage and hit with volume, and that's something you don't want to do because you're positioning yourself in a spot where you can't move, can't get out of danger if you're put in it. For Walsh, he nearly finished Kishi Kunamoto in that matchup twice in the first round. First with a big left hook, and then like a knee that was intended originally to be a kick that landed. He hits very hard, and he has some solid power. He has an amateur Muay Thai background, certainly something to build upon there. He's willing to stand and trade. He really trusts his chin. You can tell by the way he sits down in his punches, but he needs to be very careful as Jouban clearly packs some power in his hands. In his matchup against Kunamoto, his hands tended to be dropping late in round 2, but I think that was a little bit more because he was looking to defend the grappling, the shot of Kunamoto, more so than dealing with exhaustion. But that's something, keep your hands up in this matchup as Jouban hits like a cannon. One thing I like with Walsh, he has some nice trips from the clinch position, decent level changes. He'll work inside, dirty box, land elbows and knees. He did a lot of damage against Chris Indich in his debut from the clinch position, and he mixed up his attacks and takedown attempts from that spot very well. It's very hard to defend against because you really didn't know what he was going to do. When he does get the fight to the floor, he's incredibly active from top position, has hard ground and pound, and postures up very well. Now, Jouban has power, but falling behind early in matchups, certainly not a way to start. He's a little bit of a slow starter, and that's not ideal. For me, he gives up way too many takedowns, and he's too willing to spend time on his back. In that last fight, I thought he won, but also had a lot to do with the fact his opponent gassed himself out trying to finish early on. Walsh is very physically strong. He still needs to watch, as I mentioned, the power of Jouban, but my prediction is Richard Walsh to defeat Jouban, and I'll take him by decision. Now, this fight probably would have been a little more relevant had it happened 5 years ago. Nonetheless, we're getting it now. We're in the UFC's welterweight division. It's the number 11th ranked Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger, 29-9-0, battles the returning former title challenger and unranked Josh Koscheck with a current record of 19 wins and 8 losses. Now, what we have here is a battle of a guy at the end of his career in Josh Koscheck, 37 years of age, done a lot, not accomplished everything he wanted to do, but still he's been around the block, versus a fighter on the downturn of his career in Jake Ellenberger, who's 29 and probably finding out he's never going to get that title shot, which he's been ever so close to obtaining. Both guys, very interestingly enough, have identical win patterns over their last 6 fights. They're currently on 3-fight losing streaks, which was preceded by a 2-fight winning streak and then a loss before that. So they've identical records over the last 6. So that, from that point of view, it's pretty solid matchmaking. For Koscheck, he's been out of action, MIA, for the last 17 months, which is a pretty long stretch, especially for an older fighter who needs to keep active to stay on top of things. He also has been knocked out inside the first round in each of his last 2 fights, and he has lost 3 times overall by knockout, so it shows his chin is certainly not what it used to be. For Jake Ellenberger, he's coming out. He was TKO'd by Robbie Lawler in one of his most recent performances, and he's also coming off a submission loss to Kelvin Gastelum in the first round, so he's been finished a couple of times, so his durability is certainly at a level of being questioned. Now, what we have here is a wrestler versus a wrestler. NCAA Division I for Koscheck, Division II for Jake Ellenberger. Both have respectable, but not overwhelming grappling numbers. Koscheck, 2.6 takedowns at a 52% completion rate, 62% takedown defense. For Jake Ellenberger, 2.66 takedowns at a 57% completion rate, and a slightly higher takedown defense at 88%. Now, both guys are very hard to take down. Most likely, we're going to see a kickboxing-based fight for the majority, however long this bout lasts. Now, both guys have power, but Jake Ellenberger has the significantly stronger knockout numbers, 18 wins by knockout compared to just 5 for Kos. Now, Koscheck, also looking at the quality of the knockouts, Koscheck took out a clearly over-the-hill Matt Hughes, same with Matt Trigg. Yuki Yoshida also went down, and Dustin Hazlett. So not exactly a murderous row of guys he's knocked out. For Jake Ellenberger, he stopped Nate Marquardt, the very tough and durable Jake Shields. He stopped John Howard with ground and pound, and the doctor called a stoppage, one of my first predictions I ever made. And he also knocked out the veteran Mike Pyle. So slightly better quality of people he's knocked out for Jake Ellenberger. Now for Koscheck, he lands on average 1.85 strikes landed per minute versus 2.43 for Jake. So Jake a sizable striking output advantage. Koscheck also tends to get hit more than he lands, which is not a good quotient, especially if you're not one of these guys like Roy Nelson who can put your lights out with one big shot. For Koscheck, he does have power, but he tends to load up way too much, and it's fairly easy to anticipate and avoid the majority of his shots. He looks for that right hand, doesn't set it up, and when he doesn't set it up, he's not nearly as effective as he could be. Now, issues still exist for Koscheck from that jab fest he fought when he fought GSP for the title. As soon as he gets tagged in that eye that was damaged, it starts to distract him. You see him pawing at it. He's not the fighter he should be or can be because of that injury that clearly is a distraction to him. For Ellenberger, he's much more light on his feet. He sets up his strikes much better. He can work from the clinch as well and do some serious damage if he gets in there. If Jake has any intention of sticking around in the upper level of the welterweights, he has to win this fight and win it emphatically. Ellenberger seems to lack, and he's lacked a little bit of confidence of late, which is certainly a concern. He needs to get off to a strong start and show us where he's at here. Koscheck will need to either score a knockout or have success with his wrestling, and both those scenarios will be difficult. But then again, we just saw 10 upsets out of 11 fights on a card, so anything is really possible. Nonetheless, I'm going to go back with my brain, assume things fall the way I think they will, and my prediction is Jake Ellenberger to defeat Josh Koscheck by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we kick off what is a back-to-back showing for the UFC's women's bantamweight title, and really a historical night for women's MMA in general. We've got the number 12th ranked Raquel Rocky Pennington, 5-5-0, battling the number 13th ranked and debuting Holly the Preacher's daughter Holm with a current record of 7 wins and no losses. Now this is a debut for Holly Holm. She hasn't fought in 10 months. This bout bout was originally scheduled to take place at UFC 181, and it's now been rescheduled to now. And she's coming in with an exceptional amount of hype, and from her boxing background, 6 of 7 MMA wins by knockout. None in the first round, interestingly enough. A lot of them happening in rounds 2, 3, and 5. The biggest win of her career coming over in name is Jan Finney in her second pro fight. Looking though at her, she's by no stretch a relative rookie as far as combat experience. Her boxing record, 33-2-3, exceptional with 9 wins by knockout. She also dabbled into kickboxing, going 2 wins and a single loss. She won the inaugural Legacy FC Bantamweight Women's title in her first or only appearance at that organization, and she's a multi-organizational boxing champion, so she has been in combat sports for a lot longer, obviously, so she is not someone who's green by any stretch of the imagination. She is clearly being looked at as the next big fight for Ronda Rousey after Cat Zingano. From the way I look at it, she should take 3 fights at the bare minimum in the UFC before getting a title shot and to really hone her skills against next level of competition. I think she'll be lucky to get 2 before the promotion pushes her and gives her the opportunity, if she's smart, put it off till the 2016, get a couple fights, get your feet wet, and get going. Now, Holly Holm trains with Jackson's longer, and she has been training at Greg Jackson's much longer than she's been in MMA, so she has more experience than her MMA record would indicate as far as dealing with grappling and doing all those aspects of the game. Now, she has a very good kickboxing game, lots of kicks, really likes that side kick, expect to see a heavy dosage of side kicks in this matchup. She works angles exceptionally well. She'll go to the body and can work in the clinch with, she's not overwhelming in the clinch, but she can be still effective from the position. Now, one thing I noticed, just as good as her offense, is her ability to avoid and defend her opponent's offensive output. It's very impressive. Excellent movement, angles, never stays in the same place. She's in and out. She enters one way and leaves another after striking, and it's very hard to anticipate and time and catch her. Her distance management is exceptional. She has very good cardio in the fight. The 5-round fight I watched her in, she looked just as good in the 5th round as she did in the 1st round. And that's because she's used to going so many rounds, obviously shorter rounds, but still fighting long fights in her boxing career. Now, Pennington's coming off a big win. She cannot be overlooked here. Upset submission win over a heavily favored Ashley Evans Smith. So far, she's 2-1 in the UFC. She struggled in Invicta going 1-2 with losses to Kat Zingano and Leslie Smith, but she seems to have found her footing a little bit here in this promotion, with her only loss being a split decision loss to Jessica Andrade, who we just saw fight the other night. Now, this is a huge opportunity for Pennington to gain momentum. For a 5-5 fighter, you knock off Holly Holm, suddenly you are something big and climbing in the promotion. She has improved her striking significantly. She sits down in her combinations fairly well, averages 4.77 strikes landed per minute, and even though she has those big numbers, at times she tends to be a little bit too inactive and struggles to pull the trigger, especially early on, and that's something you can't do against Holly Holm because she will eat you up and spit you out. I would imagine she's going to struggle to find success on the feet with Holm. Holm is just too quick, too strong, and too, difficult defensively for her to land and have success with. She must test Holly Holm on the mat and find out what she's capable of in the grappling department. She does have 2 submission wins. The last one was very impressive, the reverse bulldog choke, over Ashley Evans Smith. 5 submissions, though, as an amateur, so very capable there, and she had 1 on The Ultimate Fighter as well. Now, she did lose to former pro boxer Jessica Rakosi on The Ultimate Fighter via decision, so that she has some experience fighting next-level striking-based opponents. She also has some trouble, Pennington, though. She's had some trouble in the clinch position before. We saw Zingano and Leslie Smith, to a lesser extent, dominate her in that position, and that's something Holly Holm, I think, is going to have success. I expect Holm's going to be able to control her in close and dominate the range striking, basically avoiding the majority of what Pennington throws while countering and landing good offensive outputs. Now, I don't think a knockout's actually going to happen, so my prediction is Holly Holm defeat Raquel Pennington. I'm going to take the debutante by decision. In the main event of the evening, the women's bantamweight title is on the line as the only champion we've ever known in the UFC for this division, Ronda Rousey, undefeated at 10-0, battles the number 1 ranked contender, Alpha Cat Zingano, also undefeated with just 9 wins, no losses, no draws, no contests. Now, this is the next big challenger for Cat Zingano. We've talked about this matchup for a long time. It's been rescheduled a couple times. It appears it's finally going to happen. Knock on wood. The match has been in the works for us for a long time, and the nice thing for Kat, coming off her injuries and all her personal issues, she got a tune-up fight and was able to pick up a victory and get back into things before fighting Ronda Rousey immediately. For Kat, as I said, she's undefeated, 5 wins by knockout, 3 submission victories, only gone the distance once in her career. She beat Invicta flyweight champion Barb Honchak, which was by decision. She submitted the aforementioned Raquel Pennington and has TKO wins over Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes. 7 of 9 wins have come after the first round, which shows how durable and tough she is for later, longer-lasting bouts. Her last 3 TKO victories all came in the third round. She's incredibly resilient, incredibly tough. For Ronda Rousey, we've gone through, multiple times breaking down what she does, but let's take another look. Undefeated, 2 wins by knockout now, 8 submissions overall. She's never gone the distance. She's only been out of the first round 1 time in her career against Miesha Tate. Look at some of the victories she's picked up. Miesha Tate twice, Sarah McMahon, Alexis Davis, Sarah Kaufman, Liz Carmouche is cleaning out the division. Obviously, a couple contenders still ahead of her, and the UFC would love to see a very good competitive fight, so it could be booked in the future if Kat does not actually win the title. Now, interesting. Here's some stats. I'll throw them at you. In all of 2014, Ronda Rousey's 2 title defenses lasted a grand total of 1 minute and 32 seconds. In Tate's second matchup with Rousey, it lasted 10 minutes and 58 seconds. The rest of Ronda Rousey's 9-fight career, excluding the number 2 Tate fight, lasted a grand total of 13 minutes and 50 seconds. That's how dominant she has been start to finish in her pro career. Now, Tate was able to defend in that second matchup, find some success with her offense, but she made some bad decisions, initiated a couple times in the clinch, got thrown with some suicide throws, and eventually got caught with submission. But you have to wonder how much, did having a second full camp of preparation time for Ronda Rousey and the experience of fighting her once already help her put that performance together, because no one else seems to be able to stick around with Ronda when they get in other than a fight with Miesha Tate. For Ronda Rousey, Olympic silver medalist in judo, 4th Dan black belt. For Zingano, BJJ purple belt, very well-decorated, well-rounded, capable fighter. For Kat, she loves that dirty, drag-out battle of attrition. Take damage, survive, rally, put it on her opponent, and break their will. For Ronda, not anything like that. She is a dominant front runner. Other than the Liz Carmouche rear naked choke attempt in her UFC debut, she has really never seen much trouble in her fights and has really run away with things. Her motto is not a motto, but just the way her mode of operation, get her opponents out as soon as possible. For Kat, she's been able to endure some trouble early on and then rally in fights, and that seems to be her mode of operation, which is something I don't know if she wants to try that here. And the big question is, can she survive Ronda Rousey early on? We've seen Miesha Tate survive early arm bars and endure those situations, in a cringing fashion. Can Kat Zingano tough those out? If she does, can she do damage and test Ronda's heart? That lack of adversity for Ronda Rousey makes it questionable. If Ronda Rousey gets hit in the face a couple times and gets in a very tough grinding bout that goes 3, 4, and 5 rounds, how will she hold up and survive under those conditions? Now, Kat Zingano, she fought Miesha Tate and finished her, but she was taken down early in that matchup and had a lot of trouble on the ground. She was also taken down by Amanda Nunes and had a lot of trouble in that matchup. And for Ronda Rousey, she only needs one opportunity in a lot of situations to put you on the mat and submit you or possibly pound you out. I just did not like the way I saw Kat on her back for a significant amount of time against Nunes and didn't have much of an answer for Nunes from that position. The way I look at it for the challenger, if she can land something early, and right away and hurt or survive the early grappling exchanges and start to land and have success against Ronda, that is her opportunity to win this fight. She has to drag the champion into a grittier second half matchup. That is her key to victory. For Ronda Rousey, we all know what she's looking for, and the thing is, her striking has improved vastly over the last couple of fights, and the window for capitalizing on that area of vulnerability appears to be gone, or at least it's much closer than it was before. Kat Zingano's a slow starter. It's hard to deny that. It hasn't cost her before. She's survived. I think she's not going to here. I think Ronda's going to put her on the mat, going to catch her, and I don't think she's going to make it look that easy. She might, but I think she's going to do it in pretty dominant fashion. Either way, my prediction is Ronda Rousey to defeat Kat Zingano and retain her UFC bantamweight title. I think she goes back to the old standby and defeats Zingano by submission, probably an armbar. So those are my 5 main card predictions. I do recognize I wasn't 100% clear in the Holly Holm prediction. I have Holly Holm defeating Raquel Pennington by decision. I said the debutante would win. I just wanted to clarify that it's Holly Holm I'm referring to in that statement. Either way, I think it'll be a good fight. I'm looking forward to this matchup. These cards, it should be a fantastic set of fights. But again, I'm challenging anyone who wants to join. You sign up at DraftKings, follow any of the banners on my website. I'll put a link up. Look for the Kamikaze Overdrive MMA contest. It'll be a $10 entry fee, and again, I'm probably going to do winner take all, so it could be $180 depending on how many people I open it up to and sign in. Pick 5 fighters. It should be a lot of fun, and we'll see how you emerge if you can defeat me, which is quite a possibility considering the struggles I've had of late. Either way, certainly consider buying the bet packs. We've won some significant money the last couple of shows, even with the bad showing the last time out, and it's a lot of fun nonetheless to bet on fights and hopefully have some success. Nothing can be crazier than the last show. There's only one direction to go, and that's up. Unless all 11 or 12 fighters in this card win by upset, or win as an upset. That would be nuts. Thanks for listening, guys, and I think we had a 2-week break, so I'll talk to you later in a little while. Take care.